Is the government coming for your cereal? RFK says that some of the food in your kitchen can actually be poison that's killing you. In this episode, we're going to kind of go through what's real, what's hype, and what this could mean for you and your family. I'm Paul Green.
And I'm Kate Austin.
And this is a Freedom Alchemist podcast. And we like to share ideas and conversations that might bring some freedom. That's our overarching umbrella of just about everything we talk about. It's freedom, baby.
Yes. And whether we're keeping this as best we can out of politics.
Right. Good luck.
Whether you like any of this administration or not, what's flying under the radar is really the amazing work that RFK is doing in the food industry.
Yeah.
Because what we have all been, especially in America, we've been lied to for a very long time. And convenience is because we work so hard, because there isn't a work-life balance here. They've created all these foods that are easy and quick and cutting corners. And anything that cuts a corner really has a detriment to your health in many ways. So we want to sort of go over those things and what to look out for to keep you and your family safe. Keep your body not poisoned with chemicals and getting all of these things that are happening right now. So really that's the aim of this. So just whatever political thing you have, just step that aside just to listen to the information that we're sharing. Yeah,
and so that convenience is the friendly side of it. The not so friendly side is all the big tobacco companies moved to the big food companies, and when they got shut down for making cigarettes so addictive, they actually took some of their tricks and put it into food. And that is why our country is the sickest on the planet, with the highest levels of diabetes, obesity, chronic illness, inflammation. Like every chronic illness you can list, the United States is basically number one. And so there's a reason for that. And looking at first principles, you want to look at what people are eating, the food.
Yeah. And actually something you may not have known as well, just on this about America's death crises, really, is Casey Means has just become the Surgeon General of this administration. And she has been a massive advocate. She was an amazing surgeon. She went to one of the best schools, and she put her scalpel down and said, I cannot do this anymore.
Do harm,
because I pledged an oath to do no harm.
That's right. Babe.
And people are coming to me for surgeries that they could heal through good food, through things they can do on their own. So she denied all of her training, walked away from all of the money she was going to make as a top surgeon in a specialized field to spread this message. And the beauty is she's just been put into a place of power where things can really start to move. And so that's why we wanted to really talk about this in this moment.
And we actually, funny enough, talking politics for a second, not really, but Kate couldn't stand Tucker Carlson, but he had on his show, he had the Means brother and sister, and it was one of the most, and it was such and it made you kind of like Tucker too, because he was so innocently just asking these questions.
He seems sweet.
He seems sweet. Kate's not a big fan, or wasn't. But in that,
not, but
the Means brother and sister also co-founded Levels, which is a constant monitoring glucose monitor. So they're approaching this food problem from a glucose and a blood sugar place, and a lot of the things that RFK's in the news right now because he just banned 10 things. We're working against some of the big chemicals, some of the additives, the colors, some of the high fructose corn syrup.
Things that are toxic that if you do every day, like cereal, and your children are doing it, then their risk of toxicity you do daily. And most people feed their kids cereal daily.
And in those cereal is like things like glyphosates and colorings that will give your children a hard time focusing and give them ADD and eventually some inflammation that could lead to forms of autoimmune and then cancer. And it truly does start with the things that you shove into your face every day. So this is really exciting and like it feels it's the weirdest time to be alive because this stuff's happening like so in real time and really, really fast. And I think it might be good just to give a little background on RFK, that he is Robert Kennedy's son. And so his dad and his uncle were both assassinated for doing things like he's doing right now. And so he has a history of kind of bucking the big agencies and the big industry and the big corporate things, that the corporate capture that happens to the government agencies. His father and uncle were going after, and now he's a leading health reformer appointed to a cabinet position. RFK has a history of this going against big corporations, and he also is responsible for cleaning the Hudson. He was an environmental lawyer for 30 years. He was leading the conversation around children's health, and that's a whole other topic, and we don't want to get into that because not only will that nobody see this video, but it's very divisive, and some people are very passionate about it.
And I want to just preface this. It's very easy for people to think he's some sort of lunatic until you do the research on what he has actually done. And then it's very hard to, I do believe that he is full of integrity, and from what I've seen in the past, who knows where it's going to go, but from what so far,
so it's really hard to tell.
So far, I've been really impressed with the level of research, so the care that he has had. Sure. So think of him what you will, but I challenge you, if you have bought into some of the crazy things they say about him, just to dig a little deeper and do some research before just like branding him as something.
Sure.
Because what he is doing right now is going to help every single American without a doubt. Taking toxic food off of off the shelves can only help everyone. And you might get upset because you're like, oh, my favorite cereal, like my Fruit Loops, are no longer there. You should never be touching that. And so it's basically going to stop you from doing something that's hurting yourself and your children.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so he believes banning or restricting access to some of these toxic chemicals is going to directly affect our children, and especially children from low-income families. Because what you can do with some of these government food stamps like SNAP is buy ultra-processed junk food that is going to make kids sicker, and then diabetes with obesity and all of the diseases that are connected to obesity and diabetes. There's a real threat to our children, and especially low-income, with these food stamps and SNAP, and just keeping everybody sick. And the future of our country is our children. And so we're really passionate about this conversation and think it's going to turn this country around for the best. At least I'm very optimistic. And let's just quickly crack into what are ultra-processed food anywhere. The definition from NOVA classification is foods that have undergone industrial process and contain additives like preservatives, colorants, sweeteners, emulsifiers, and artificial flavors. Some common examples are instant noodles, sodas, packaged snacks, frozen meals, and even some breakfast cereals. All of those increase obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, cancer risk, and even two of our favorites, Dr. Huberman and Dr. Mark Hyman, but they both point out that these foods disrupt your gut health, your hormone functions, and your metabolic pathways, which is Kelly means and Casey, they're both huge on metabolic health.
And here's the thing, when your gut is not good, your brain is not good. So the reason we see such high depression and anxiety is because we all have inflamed guts from eating these foods. So everyone thinks that if it's a depression, it's something in your brain, but it's all starts in your gut. And so all of the issues we're really facing right now is due to these types of foods.
That's right. And so 60% of all the food in American diet is made up of ultra-processed foods. So this is in the news today. There's over 10 of these toxic chemicals that are being banned, and or at least that are being under scrutiny. Yay. And one of the next exciting frontiers is the school lunch reforms. And he's pushing to remove all processed meals from school cafeterias, targeting high sugar breakfast, chocolate milk, Pop-Tarts, replacing them with whole food alternatives in the schools. The goal of this is to improve attention span, energy levels, and long-term health in the kids.
And just so you know, we really take care of people sort of midlife onwards that haven't been taking care of themselves with food or with their movement with food, all of these sorts of things. And the health implications are severe when you add it up over time. And we have a 3-year-old, and he has never had processed food, never had processed sugar. He has fruit. He loves fruit.
It's a fruit bat.
Total fruit bat, because he doesn't have any of that other stuff. Even Halloween, we can't let him collect candy, and then we do a switch and get him something else. We do let him collect candy. We let him collect it, and he's never even tried to eat it because he doesn't know. So some people are like, you're so mean, and it's like, no, we actually care about him.
Yeah.
And we don't want him to have the health issues by plowing candy down his face and having his brain freak out, because the sugar is so terrible for children's brains.
Not just the sugar, but it's the red dye 40, the yellow 5, all those preservatives and colors are been banned in Europe for decades, but they're pushed and legal here in the US.
Yeah.
And then there's studies showing links between those additives and all the behavioral issues in kids, especially ADHD, endocrine disruption, and even cancer-causing carcinogenic effects in some of those additives. So some of them are already being banned, but it's just keeping up to Europe, where they have such a higher level of health. They have 300
of these terrible chemicals, as opposed to America has over 10,000. Like, think about those statistics. And that's why you're like, why in Europe does everyone eat bread and eat all the things and they don't get overweight? It's because they don't have all these chemicals and additives. Because our body is inflamed when we have all these things. It doesn't know how to process it, so it stays inflamed.
And why would these U.S. companies sell a clean version of the same product to Europe, but here they're allowed to keep it packed with chemicals and flame retardants? And that's where RFK Jr. is just saying, let's raise these American standards just to where Europe is.
Yeah.
It's not that controversial.
And the reason they do it is they want you addicted. They want you, unwell, because then you become, and they're in bed with the whole medical industry. And so that's a whole nother thing. But, they make the most amount of money from someone that's sick from a very young age.
Yep.
So and all of this is preventable. Type 2 diabetes, totally reversible. Like, all of these things. And if you stay as a type 2 diabetes, the health implications are horrific. And people are really casual about it. Like, oh, I'm pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes. No big deal. It is a massive deal, and you can reverse it and become completely normal again without any of that disease. So
and one way to do that is to jerf. So he's flipping the food pyramid, which has sugars and carbohydrates and starches at the bottom and a tiny little bit of fats and proteins at the top. He's just saying, let's just revert to just eat real food, and that's a very functional medicine, functional nutrition approach. Just eat real food.
Speaking of the ones we're protecting, and my one needs me right now, so I'm going to pop out.
So I'll finish this. Continuing. So the emphasis will likely be on anti-inflammatory foods, greens, berries, olive oil, high-quality proteins, which is a very common thing in functional nutrition, which I have my degree in functional nutrition, avoiding things like seed oils, refined sugars, and refined carbs. Our dietary guidelines should be dictated by science, not by cereal lobbyists. That's one of RFK's quotes right there. There's a full spectrum here of opinions. Supporters include functional medicine doctors, Dr. Mark Hyman, Gabrielle Lyon, Dr. Zach Bush, parents and school nutrition advocates, progressive health organizations. These are all supporters. Opponents include food manufacturers like Nestle, General Mills, PepsiCo, lobbyists, and some SNAP program advocates that are shaven off the top, obviously. Libertarians who argue that this is against a nanny state policies, which is an interesting perspective. Big food lobbyists spend over $30 million a year influencing food policy. Could this maybe be why it's taken so long for these bans to even be considered? I mean, it's a fair question. You can look into the future and wonder, how are the school districts and the food banks, how are they going to adapt? The potential rise in organic and local food initiatives, that's exciting. Farmers. This could also mean for the broader U.S. healthcare system and the future of our kids. And even the way that we defend ourselves, like if we're sick, it's really hard we're spending trillions of dollars on healthcare. We could be spending it on communicating with our enemies. Some would say beefing up our defenses, but I would say the opposite of that. RFK is going to probably be sued or worse, threaten his life because he's going after some very big money here, billions of dollars. There's also First Amendment issues here. Food, there's food deserts. Some places can't afford food like this. So this movement could become America's real food revolution. Or maybe this is just another well-meaning policy destined to fail in the hands of the bureaucracy. And I feel like that choice is up to you. Like, you can share and support and dig into this and really look at the history of our insane chemical food, ultra-processed, and the corruption in government, and see what we can do to change that. So in conclusion here, I just wanted to share some of the big news and introduce you to a few concepts. Maybe you've just thrown him out the window because of some of the news bites. Maybe he's your favorite person, but there's a bunch of chemicals that are being banned, or at least on the radar, and that's just exciting news. So as you're going through your week, start looking at your food and start getting rid of the ultra-processed and move towards some of the more natural and real and organic and food. And if you can't afford it, eat way less. And eventually, hopefully, what will happen is the real food and organic food will get cheaper and cheaper as time goes on. So thanks for stopping by. Make sure you subscribe to Freedom Alchemist podcast on Apple and also here on YouTube. And you can stop by our website. We have Kate and I coach people through various programs at different stages of their life, some focusing on the second half of life, which is exciting. And just thanks for stopping by. Remember that life is happening for you. Life is not happening to you. Therefore, you're not a victim. All right, make it a great day. Bye. I just want to take one moment to ask you to subscribe to this if you're listening, and whether you're listening to it on iTunes or you're watching this on YouTube, it shows us that very few people are actually subscribed who watch us, so it makes a big difference. And also, if you check below in the description, there's a list of all of the amazing companies I work with that I use, and there's codes down there that help support this podcast. All right, see you soon.